I found the NDA on Julian's mahogany desk at 2:04 a.m. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was looking for the deed to the place on Martha's Vineyard because the basement sump pump had failed again and the insurance adjuster needed proof of ownership. Instead, I found the IP transfer agreement. Bold letterhead, Vance Biodynamics. My company, my patents, my 10 years of blood, sweat, and electron microscopy. And in the assignee line, a name that made my stomach clench. Chloe Dubois. Chloe, the girl who thought mRNA was a new dating app. The girl who spent her afternoons doing Pilates in our guest house while I spent mine calibrating mass spectrometers until my retinas burned. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the crystal paperweight. 10 years of marriage to Julian Vance had taught me that emotional volatility was just another weapon he'd used to discredit me. I picked up the document. The signature at the bottom was mine, forged with a fluidity that suggested Julian had been practicing my hand for longer than I wanted to imagine. I walked into the kitchen. Julian was there, pouring a finger of Macallan, 25. Still in his Tom Ford tuxedo from the Children's Hospital Gala, I'd skipped to finalize the list, 114 stability assays. "You're up late, Ellie," he said, not bothering to look at me. "You look like hell. You should get some sleep." I slid the document across the Carrara marble island. "Explain this." He glanced at it. His face didn't register surprise, guilt, or even mild interest. It was the most infuriating part, the total. Board dismissal. It's business. Eleanor. Chloe's launching a luxury wellness brand. Vitality by Chloe. Your little cancer research fits the longevity narrative perfectly. My little cancer research? My voice was flat, clinical. I built Vance Biodynamics from a converted garage in Kendall Square. I bankrolled your first 3 VC funds with a Series A round. This isn't yours to gift like a fucking Tiffany box. He finally turned his gaze on me, his blue eyes glacial. You're being hysterical. You're a scientist. Ellie, stay in your lane. I'm the CEO. I steer the ship. Chloe has connections. She gets us into rooms you wouldn't understand with your nose buried in a biosafety cabinet. She thinks CRISPR is a type of kale. I said, you gave the Lys 114 inhibitor, a targeted immunotherapy that took me 8 years to stabilize, to a woman who can't pronounce immunoglobulin. She's a quick study, Julian said, shrugging, and she's loyal, something you've forgotten how to be. You've become tedious. Eleanor, Chloe makes me feel alive. She understands the vision of grand larceny. I asked. No, he said softly, the threat in his tone hitting harder than a shout. The vision of scale. Sign the ratification tomorrow, Ellie, or I'll make sure every institutional review board in Cambridge knows you're difficult to work with. I'll blacklist you. You'll be pipetting for minimum wage at some community college lab in Worcester. He turned back to the Boston skyline, effectively dismissing me. Go to bed. You look exhausted. I stood there, staring at the back of his arrogant head. 10 years. I'd ignored the business trips to Miami, the Uber receipts from downtown when he said he was at the club, the scent of Lou Labo Santal 33 on his shirts that wasn't mine. I'd told myself it was the price of building something monumental. I'd told myself he needed my brain, even if he didn't want my heart. I was wrong. He needed what my brain produced. And now that it was producing gold, he was handing it to his mistress. I walked out of the kitchen, not to our bedroom. I couldn't stand the thought of sharing oxygen with him tonight. I went to my private annex, keyed in the biometric lock, and sat down at my workstation. The hum of the servers was the only sound I trusted. I opened a secure terminal. For years, I'd built the empire. I'd written the base code for the drug synthesis algorithms. I'd mapped the genomic sequences for the peptide delivery system. But I'd also built the kill switches. Julian always assumed the tech was neutral, that the cloud was just a vault he owned. He never understood that the cloud was my domain. I started typing, not to delete the data That was amateur hour. Julian would just buy backups from some shady vendor in Tel Aviv. I was rewriting the core algorithmic structure of the LIS 114 inhibitor. I was introducing a recursive degradation sequence. In 48 hours, the protein folding simulations would collapse. The clinical trial datasets would corrupt themselves from the inside out. The miracle drug Julian had just handed to his bimbo would turn into digital cyanide. As I worked, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown burner number. A photo. Julian and Chloe on a yacht off Nantucket. Champagne, flute in hand. Mid-kiss. The caption read, "Thanks for the research. Dummy. It looks better on me than it ever did on you. XOXO." I stared at the screen. Then, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. The first one in years. "Game on. You stupid bitch." I muttered. I finished the script. It was elegant. It was irreversible. I hit enter. The destruction of Vance Biodynamics didn't start with a bang. It started with a keystroke. And it started tonight. I leaned back, watching the lines of code scroll. My phone buzzed again. Julian, probably wondering why I wasn't in bed crying. I silenced the ringer and went back to work. There was a new company to blueprint. Reed Therapeutics. Just me. No dead weight. You wanted a legacy, Julian? I whispered to the silent lab. You'll get one. They'll remember the day the Vance empire turned to ash. And they'll remember the woman who lit the match. I was at the espresso machine by 6, wearing a crisp theory blouse and a pencil skirt, Julian's preferred high-value wife uniform. I plated his scrambled eggs exactly how he liked them, dry. With a side of avocado toast he wouldn't eat. Performance art. He shuffled in, still in his pajamas, scrolling through his Bloomberg terminal. You're up early, he grunted. Did you sign the ratification? Not yet, I said, setting the plate in front of him. I want to discuss the transition. What happens to my team? Eris and Chen have been with me since the Series A. They're being reassigned, Julian said, not looking up. Chloe wants her own people. Harvard grads. Fresh perspectives. Your team is stale. Stale, I repeated. Doctor, Eris is the only person in New England who can model the LIS 114 binding affinity in under 10 minutes. Doctor, Chen optimized the synthesis yield by 40%. You're replacing them with kids who think peer review is a social media feature? Julian finally looked up, irritation flashing in his eyes. Watch your tone. Eleanor, it's not a debate. Chloe is the new face of innovation. You're the backbone. Stay in your lane. I expect you at the Biotech Summit this afternoon. Smile for the cameras. Play nice. And sign whatever needs signing. And if I don't? I asked, stirring my black coffee. He leaned back, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Then I remind the board and the SEC that your brilliance was only possible because of my capital. I'll bury you so deep in litigation, you'll be decades old before you see a courtroom. You'll be a footnote, Ellie, a cautionary tale about why women shouldn't play in the big leagues without a man to hold their hand. Right, I said, taking a sip. I'll be there. He went back to his phone. I walked to the annex. My sanctuary. Doctor. Eris was already there, his face the color of skim milk. He didn't greet me, just pointed to his monitor. Doctor. Vance. He whispered. The simulation data it's degrading. The protein folding models are losing tertiary structure. The error margin is spiking exponentially. I've never seen anything like this outside of a corrupted hard drive. I closed the door, engaging the soundproofing. It's not a bug, Michael. It's a feature. He stared at me, his glasses slipping down his nose. What? You did this? The FDA submission is next month. If the data collapses now, then the FDA will find that the corruption began precisely at the timestamp of the IP transfer to Chloe Dubois. I finished. They'll find her electronic signature on the final validation logs. And they'll find Julian's authorization buried in the metadata. Eris sank into his chair, running a hand through his thinning hair. My God, you're destroying everything. The company, our reputations. I'm burning down a house built on sand. I corrected, and I'm salvaging the foundation. I have the primary data sets, mirrored on a quantum encrypted server in Zurich. Everything Vance Biodynamics has access to now is a sophisticated hall of mirrors. The question is, are you staying on a sinking ship, or are you coming with me? He looked at the cascading lines of red error codes on his screen. Then he looked at me. I'm with you, Dr. Vance. Always. But what about Chen? And the others? Bring them in. One by one. Quietly. Tell them it's a continuity of operations briefing. We're forming Reed Therapeutics. Effective immediately. Their salaries will be honored. But their loyalty needs to shift now. Eris nodded, his resolve hardening. I'll start with Chen. He's been complaining about Julian's strategic direction for weeks. Good. I opened a secure messaging app on my phone. A text from Julian. Where the fuck are you? Board meeting in 5. Stop hiding in your lab like a recluse. I typed back on my way, just finalizing this stale data. I walked into the boardroom as Julian was wrapping up his opening remarks. He shot me a look that promised violence later. I took my usual seat near the back, silent, and with the acquisition of the LIS 114 IP by Ms. Du Bois, we're projecting a 300% ROI in the first fiscal year, Julian was saying, pacing like a TED Talk speaker. Innovation isn't just about the lab, it's about the brand. Chloe's vision for accessible longevity is exactly what the market demands. He gestured to the massive screen. A video feed flickered to life. Chloe was there, lounging on a velvet chaise in what looked like a Soho loft. She was wearing a lab coat over a slip dress, holding a petri dish like it was a martini glass. Hi, everyone, she chirped. I'm so thrilled to be leading the charge on LIS 114. Eleanor's work was light, super foundational, but I've added some major tweaks. I'm talking biohacking, personalized genomics, and making science light, sexy again. I watched her butcher the terminology. Peptide chains, she said. Am I right? We're simplifying them for the everyday consumer. It's not just medicine, it's a lifestyle. The board members nodded, eating it up. Venture capitalists loved a good narrative, even if it was delivered by an idiot. Julian caught my eye, a smug grin on his face. See, his expression said, this is how you play the game. After the meeting, he cornered me in the hallway, his hand clamping down on my upper arm hard enough to bruise. That went well. Now, my office. Ratification papers. Now, I have to review the corrupted simulation logs with Eris. I said, keeping my voice level. The degradation is accelerating. Eris can handle it. Julian hissed. I'm tired of your insubordination. Eleanor, you're acting like a petulant child. Sign the papers, and I'll let you keep a vanity title as senior science advisor. Refuse, and I'll make sure your corrupted logs are the only thing anyone remembers about you. I'll have you blacklisted from every NIH grant committee in the country. I looked at his hand on my arm. Then I looked into his eyes. Let go. Julian. He laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. Or what? You'll quit? Run to mommy? Who's going to hire you? Eleanor? You're a ghost without my name. You're a footnote without my money. I'm the woman who owns the encryption keys to the kingdom you just sold to a moron. I said quietly. I pulled my arm free. His smirk faltered for a split second before he masked it with rage. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone, showing him the live feed from the server room. The error codes were now flashing red, accompanied by a looping message in green text. Integrity compromised. Source unauthorized. Julian's face paled. What did you do? I ensured that what you stole can never be used. I said, enjoy the summit this afternoon. Julian, make sure Chloe wears her best lab coat. It'll look great on the evening news when the miracle drug turns out to be a digital dumpster fire. I walked away, leaving him staring at my phone screen. My own phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Can't wait to wear your lab coat today. It'll fit me better than it ever fit you. XOXO. I blocked the number. Then I opened a new document and began drafting the press release for Reed Therapeutics. The first line wrote itself. Today. Science belongs to the scientists again. Julian wanted a legacy? I'd give him one carved in digital stone. And when the dust settled, the only name on the cure would be mine. The Seaport Hotel was crawling with VCs in all birds and scientists in bespoke suits. Julian was already inside, holding court near the staging area. I clocked Chloe immediately. She was draped over a velvet rope, wearing a white Alexander Vouthie mini dress and a lab coat that looked like it came straight from a spirit Halloween. Around her neck, a lanyard screamed Chief Innovation Officer. She spotted me and waved, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Eleanor, you actually came, she chirped, loud enough for the nearby CNBC cameraman to swing his lens toward us. I was worried you'd be too busy crying into your centrifuge or whatever. I didn't break stride. Julian materialized at my elbow, his grip on my bicep tight enough to cut circulation. Where the hell have you been? She's on in 2 minutes. Fix your face. You're supposed to be the supportive wife, not a walking corpse. I'm here to watch the show. Julian, I said, shaking him off, just like everyone else. Damn right you are, he muttered, adjusting his tie. Smile for the cameras. After this, you sign the ratification, and I might let you consult for pennies. Keep this up, and I'll make sure you're auditing water quality in some podunk town in Iowa. Chloe took the stage to a smattering of polite applause. She leaned into the microphone, her posture screaming aspirational influencer. Hey, Boston. So stoked to be here. Today, we're not just talking about oncology, we're talking about longevity. My new brand, Vitality by Chloe, is democratizing the future. And it all starts with the LIS 114 inhibitor. I mean, Eleanor did the basic RD, but I really elevated it. Like, I simplified the peptide chains, made them, like, super bioavailable. I stood at the back of the ballroom, arms crossed. She wasn't just lying, she was butchering the science. Julian was nodding along, basking in the glow of her success. Then it happened. The slide behind her, a complex graph of tumor regression, flickered. A line of red text crawled across the bottom of the screen. System alert. Data integrity failure. Chloe paused, squinting at the teleprompter. Tech issue? Anyway, as I was saying, the screen went black. When it flickered back, the graph was gone. In its place, a stark white terminal window filled the jumbotron. Green text scrolled rapidly, lines of code I recognized intimately. Then, a message box, centered and pulsing. Prupere dataset, lis en fira. Status corrupted. Non recoverable. Unauthorized transfer point. Du Bois. C. Timestamp 2h14. The room erupted. Phones were out. Shutters clicked. Someone from Stat News shouted, "Is this a hack?" Chloe stammered, her spray 10 looking green under the stage lights. "No, this is a glitch. Julian, do something." Julian lunged for the mic, his face the color of a ripe eggplant. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, a minor cyber intrusion. We have redundancies. Vance Biodynamics Security is. There are no redundancies. Julian," I said, my voice cutting through the static as I walked down the center aisle. Every head turned. The cameras followed. The corruption isn't external. It's systemic. It's a recursive fail-safe embedded in the core architecture of LIS 114. If the primary investigator, that's me, is forcibly removed from the development loop, the entire data structure initiates a self-destruct sequence. It's a feature, not a bug. "You crazy, vindictive bitch." Chloe hissed into the mic, forgetting she was live. You ruined my launch. My brand. I stopped at the foot of the stage, looking up at her. You wanted my research. Chloe, you have it. Every byte is now digital confetti. Good luck explaining that to the FDA when they audit your innovation and find nothing but corrupted hex code. Julian jumped off the stage, grabbing my wrist hard. What the fuck have you done? Do you know how much capital is riding on this? 3 billion. Eleanor, 3 billion. I know exactly what it cost you, I said, twisting my arm free. It cost you the illusion that you could steal my mind and sell it to a dilettante. You wanted the empire? You got the ashes. Reporters swarmed us. Dr. Vance, is Vance Biodynamics insolvent? Mr. Vance, what does this mean for your Series C? Chloe, were you aware the data was compromised? Julian tried to regain control, shouting about legal recourse and defaming a publicly traded company. It was useless. On the Jumbotron, the stock ticker for Dollar Vance was already in a free fall. Minus 15%, minus 28%, minus 42%. I turned to the nearest camera, ignoring Julian's spluttering. My name is Eleanor Vance. I am the sole inventor of the LIS 114 technology. Any claims of ownership by Vance Biodynamics or Chloe Du Bois are fraudulent. Effective immediately. I am resigning from all executive roles at Vance Biodynamics. I am founding a new entity, Reed Therapeutics. At Reed, science will be led by scientists, not socialites. Our doors open Monday. I looked at Julian one last time. His eyes were wide with a terror I'd never seen before. The look of a man watching his entire identity dissolve into a liquidity crisis. Enjoy the legacy. Julian, it's going to be a very short one. I walked out of the summit, the roar of the crowd fading behind me. In the parking garage, my phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Eris. Servers are stable. Zurich confirms 100% data integrity. Reed Therapeutics domain is live. The team is in place. We're ready when you are. I smiled, sliding into the back of the Uber. The Four Seasons, I told the driver, and step on it. Behind us, I could still hear the faint echo of Chloe shrieking, my launch. Julian, fix it. My followers are going to cancel me. I blocked the number. The empire was dust, and I was already building the future. The fallout moved faster than a short seller's tweet. By 11:17 a.m., trading on Dollar Vance was halted. By noon, the SEC issued a formal inquiry into potential securities fraud and IP irregularities. By 2 p.m., Julian Vance was a ghost haunting the lobby of the Four Seasons, and I was the only one who knew his room number. I didn't knock. I used the key card the concierge gave me after I mentioned the FDIC-insured lien I now held on the property. Julian was pacing near the minibar, still in yesterday's tux, his hair mashed flat on one side. He looked like a hedge fund manager who'd just realized his collateral was subprime. Have you lost your goddamn mind? He snarled, lunging for the door. I stepped inside, shutting it with my heel. 3 billion. Eleanor, 3 billion in market cap. Gone. Do you know what you've done to my reputation? I know exactly what I've done to your net worth, I said, tossing the key card onto the rumpled bed. And your reputation was a Ponzi scheme built on my patents. I just pulled the rug. You're finished. He screamed, his voice cracking. I'll bury you. I'll call every chair at Mass General, every partner at Flagship Pioneering. I'll tell them you're unstable. I'll tell them you sabotaged your own work. No one will ever fund Reed Therapeutics. You'll be blackballed from every IRB in the Northeast. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound that seemed to piss him off more. Who do you think they're going to believe? Julian? The guy whose signature is on a forged IP transfer that triggered a $3 billion wipeout? Or the woman who holds the original wet lab notebooks, the encrypted Git repositories, and the chain of custody logs dating back to 2014? You played checkers. I played Go. He charged me. but I didn't flinch. He stopped an inch from my face, spittle collecting at the corners of his mouth. You're my wife. You owe me. I put you on the cover of Forbes. I gave you a platform. You gave me a cage, I said, stepping around him. I walked to the desk, where his laptop was open to a frantic email thread with his lawyers, and the platform was built on my back. You didn't put me anywhere, Julian. I let you think you did. That was my mistake. This, I gestured to the chaos around us, is my correction. The board, he started, but I cut him off. Already met via emergency Zoom, I said, pulling up the email on my phone. While you were busy blaming cyber terrorists, I was buying the outstanding shares of Vance Holdings LLC through a blind trust. I own 51% of the voting stock now. You're out, Julian. Effective immediately. Security is already changing the locks on your corner office. Your name will be off the lobby directory by sunset. He sank to his knees, the fight draining out of him like air from a punctured tire. Eleanor, please. I made a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll reverse the transfer. I'll fire Chloe. Just give me a chance to make it right. We can pivot. We can say it was a prank, a viral marketing stunt. I crouched down, meeting his gaze. His eyes were bloodshot, his pupils dilated with panic. You didn't make a mistake, Julian. You made a series of choices. You chose to forge my name. You chose to underestimate my technical capabilities. You chose to believe that because I was quiet, I was weak. You were wrong on all counts. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. Get up. You're embarrassing yourself. He grabbed my ankle, his grip weak. Where will I go? The feds are looking at me for the Cayman accounts. Chloe's lawyer is saying I coerced her. I'm ruined. You should have thought about that before you decided my life's work was a dowry for your mistress, I said, shaking him off. The FBI has the forensic accounting reports. The SEC has the server logs. And I have the recordings. He froze. What recordings? The ones from the Nest Cam in your study, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. The ones where you clearly instruct your paralegal to match Dr. Vance's signature on the Du Bois transfer. Consequences be damned. The audio is crystal clear. Julian, I've already forwarded them to Assistant Director Miller at the Boston field office. Consider it a parting gift. He lunged for me again, but I was already at the door. Eleanor, don't do this. I love you. I paused, my hand on the handle. I didn't look back. No, Julian, you love the idea of me. There's a difference, and the idea of you is officially bankrupt. I walked out, ignoring the sound of him smashing the hotel phone against the wall. In the elevator, I checked my messages. Dr. Eris, Reed Therapeutic servers are live. The team is migrating the primary datasets now. The FDA has approved our IND application under the new entity. We're cleared for Phase 2 trials on Monday. I texted back, excellent. Start the hiring process for a new chief legal officer. Someone who understands that intellectual property isn't a suggestion. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Reporters were camped outside, but my car was waiting at the private exit. As we pulled away, I saw Julian stumbling out of the hotel, screaming into a dead cell phone. A black Suburban with government plates idled at the curb. 2 agents in cheap suits stepped out. I didn't watch the arrest. I didn't need to. The empire was scorched. The earth was salted, and I was already planting new seeds. Davos in January is a meat market of the mighty, pretending humility while wearing $5,000 parkas. I declined the designer sponsorships, wore a charcoal J crew suit and the same black leather boots I'd worn in the lab for a decade. No wedding ring, no Julian Vance shadow, just me, the RFID badge that said Dr. Eleanor Vance, founder, Reed Therapeutics, and a packed auditorium. I didn't do small talk in the green room, didn't need the notes. When the moderator introduced me as the woman who rewrote the rules of biotech, I walked onto the stage. adjusted the mic, and looked out at the sea of power brokers. My Name ist Eleanor Vance. I started, my voice flat, carrying. 6 months ago, a man told me my value was tied to his name, that my intellect was a resource to be leveraged, not a legacy to be honored. He told me loyalty was a commodity, and love was a weakness. He was wrong on all counts. I clicked the remote. The screen behind me didn't show a balance sheet. It showed a molecule. Lys 114. Elegant. Complex. Ours. This is Lys 114. It's in phase 3 trials now. The interim data shows a 78% remission rate in stage for metastatic melanoma. It will save lives, but it represents more than a cure. It represents the principle that no one has the right to claim ownership of another person's mind. It represents that a woman's work isn't a decorative accent to a man's ambition. It is the foundation. A reporter from the Financial Times raised a hand. Dr. Vance, your former husband, Julian Vance, was recently sentenced to 12 years for wire fraud, IP theft, and obstruction of justice. He's appealing, claiming you orchestrated a digital vendetta. Your response? I didn't blink. Julian Vance orchestrated his own downfall the moment he mistook my silence for stupidity. The digital evidence the prosecution used was simply the audit trail he left behind. I didn't orchestrate a vendetta. I protected my intellectual property. There's a difference. One is illegal. The other is Tuesday in the biotech sector. A ripple of dark laughter. I pressed on. To the Julians of the world, and every boardroom has one, I say this: you cannot steal a sunrise. You can try to block it, to obscure it, to forge paperwork claiming it as your own. But the light will always find a way through. And when it does, it won't just illuminate the truth. It will burn away the lies. Another hand. Chloe Du Bois was released last month after serving 10 months. She's launched a podcast and censored with Chloe, claiming she was groomed by Vance and misled by you. Any comment? Ms. Du Bois is entitled to her narrative. I said, I'm entitled to mine. Mine involve peer-reviewed data, patented algorithms, and a company valued at $8, $2 billion without a single Instagram filter. Hers involves a parole officer and a very limited understanding of peptide chains. I suggest the market decide which has more value. I stepped away from the podium to a standing ovation. Not the polite kind, the kind that meant money was already moving. I walked off stage, straight to the waiting SUV. My assistant, a sharp kid from MIT named David, handed me a sat phone. Line 1. Dr. Vance. It's the FDA. They fast-tracked the Lys 114 approval. They want the first shipment to MGH by Monday. Tell them we'll be ready. I said, taking the phone. And David? Make sure the press release mentions that Reed Therapeutics funded the entire trial without a single dollar of venture debt. No strings. No silent partners. Already drafted, he said, grinning. I settled into the back seat, the alpine air biting even through the tinted windows. I thought about the note I'd written that night in Somerville, the one I'd deleted. It felt like a lifetime ago. I pulled out my personal phone, opening the Notes app. I typed one line, saving it this time. Value isn't given. It's demanded. Proven. Owned. I looked out at the Swiss peaks, sharp and indifferent. The empire Julian had stolen was a distant memory, a cautionary tale in some Harvard Business School case study. The one I'd built, Reed Therapeutics, was just getting started. And this time, the only name on the deed, the patents, and the cures was mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Eris. First patient dose today. Remission markers present within the hour. It's working. Eleanor, it's really working. I typed back, I know. Start on the pediatric protocol. And Michael, make sure the credit line in every journal reads. Research funded by Reed Therapeutics. Founded by Dr. Eleanor Vance. No exceptions. I put the phone away. watching the snow-capped mountains blur past. The girl who'd once apologized for being too smart was gone. In her place was a woman who didn't ask for permission, a woman who didn't share the mic, a woman who knew exactly what she was worth. The car pulled onto the highway, heading toward the airport, toward the next lab, the next breakthrough, the next name on a building that wouldn't be Vance. It would be Reed, and it would stay that way